making the world a better place. Oh, we're now recording in progress. Got it. This will be a discussion with female founders of 3 Philadelphia-based startups focusing on solving some of today's environmental and social challenges. These 3 speakers have very different foci in their businesses, but some excellent, strong feminine energy coming into it. Without further ado, I'm going to have the format for today's session is that I'm going to have each of our 3 guests introduce themselves and speak a few minutes about their business. And then we will get into a set of questions we've agreed upon. And then for the last 15 minutes of the session, we will be asking for questions from the audience. So we do hope that the audience puts questions into the chat. And just double check that we're all good. Yep, we are all good. Okay, so without further ado, I would love to pass it to Katya. Katya, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about your business and tell us a fun fact about why you got into this business, please.
Sounds good. I'm Katya or Catherine. I'm the founder of Strella. Basically what we're doing is we're addressing the $2.6 trillion food waste issue. Our core thesis around that is that food supply chains aren't designed for food. So there's a lack of data about the quality of perishable products. And secondly, any data that is generated isn't connected via a system of record as the product moves down the chain. So in order to solve this problem, we've created a proprietary sensing tech that enables us to predict the maturity of produce. And we couple that with software to help our customers make smarter inventory decisions. Fun fact, I started the company while procrastinating to get into grad school, actually. I was supposed to be a neuroscientist or a neurogeneticist, and I just couldn't really commit to doing that. So for some reason, decided to read about food waste, got really, really passionate about that, and ended up starting a company around it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Katya. That was very concise. Melissa, can we hear a little bit about you, your background, your business, and the fun fact?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you all. My name is Melissa Lee. I'm the founder and CEO of the Green Program. And there's dogs in the background, so apologies for that. But I'm at the Green Program. We were founded in 2009, and our mission has been to educate and empower future sustainability leaders through innovative models of experiential education, responsible travel, and adventure. Our programs are all accredited 8 to 10 day experiences that fit within universities' winter, spring, and summer breaks all across the world. And our students actually represent about 470 universities in 70 countries around the world over the years. Our programs, I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but they've been focused all around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we use that as our main framework of designing all of our curriculum through experiential education. And what we specialize in is industry access. So what that means is getting students and any of our participants exclusive access behind the scenes into facilities like Iceland's largest geothermal facilities, or Fukushima, Japan's disaster zones, or nuclear power plants as well. Post-program, we're one of the only providers that support lifelong career support for our alumni too. So we're really proud to see our alumni making some amazing impact at places like Tesla, NASA, National Geographic, Google, you name it, they're out there changing the world. So yeah, empowering this next generation of sustainability leaders. My fun fact is actually similar to Katya. I actually started the Green Program when I was a student as well. So about 12 years ago, when I was a 19-year-old student studying, undecided at the time, but really eager to connect classroom to career and something along the lines for sustainable development and social impact. Thanks.
Terrific. Thank you, Melissa. I want to go back to college so that I can do an adventure. Natalie, can we hear a bit about you, your company, and a fun fact?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me this morning, Melissa. I'm Natalie Lennon, founder of Green Ablutions. I wasn't always an entrepreneur. I spent 15 years working as an engineer in pharmaceuticals before I was inspired to start Green Ablutions. So here's a fun fact. Philly burns over half of their recycling instead of actually recycling it. And 100% of sea turtles that are rescued have plastic in their digestive system. Pretty disgusting, right? So plastic bags, bottles floating in the ocean, they just happen to look like their favorite food, jellyfish. This really startled me around 2018 when I found out this information. I'd always been an environmentalist at heart, but I really needed to do something to make change. So I decided to start Green Ablutions. Our plastic-free shampoo and conditioner bars replace up to 3 medium-sized bottles of comparable liquid products. We use recycled paper packaging that can then be either re-recycled or thrown in a home compost bin. This way, we ensure that nothing ends up in landfill or in the ocean. Liquid shampoo is pretty wasteful. It's 80% water. You already have that in your bathroom, and it requires extra fuel and emissions to ship. It also creates a ton of trash because 90% of plastic is already not recycled, and Philly is burning most of it. 10% of every sale supports endangered sea turtles at Gumbo Limbo Nature Center, which is a sea turtle hospital and rehabilitation center in Boca Raton, Florida. Last year, through our efforts, we kept over 5,000 bottles out of landfills and fed 100 baby sea turtle hatchlings every day for a year. You can check out our lineup at greenablutions.com, and we're available at 15 stores in the Philadelphia area, including Weaver's Way and Kimberton Whole Foods.
Terrific. Thank you so much. So this is really exciting, and I hope the audience can see that we've got 3 very different concepts, but with some underlying themes. And I think the first one that I'd like to touch, the first question I'd like to pose to each of you is, how has your company integrated sustainability not only into your products, but into your mission? How do you manage your business? And so really looking at, obviously some of their services and products here, but really sort of looking at how you're walking the talk in addition to how you're putting your products out there. I will pitch that one to Natalie first.
Sure. So for me, it's not just plastic-free packaging. We also do carbon neutral shipping. And as I mentioned, we support sea turtles with funds from every sale. But a big part of our mission is keeping a small footprint. So suppliers that we work with, we try to work with other women-owned businesses, small family businesses that are based here in the US. I could save a lot of money by buying cheap supplies made overseas. And I can make a lot more in profits if I sold my products on Amazon, but that goes against my mission of sustainability. I don't want my products in stores that don't align with my values. I really feel, who we choose to partner with is just as important as what we're making in the world.
Yeah, agreed. Melissa, do you have thoughts on that? And I'm thinking, obviously there's value to the educational opportunities you're providing to students, but there's an environmental burden. So I'd love to hear from you on how your approach to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've done, so we were founded in 2009, and we're running programs before the SDGs came out. But when the UN launched the SDGs in September 2015, our team was at the UN, and I remember having this, it's so corny, but that light bulb moment of looking at this framework of 17 of the world's most pressing issues with the Sustainable Development Goals. And it was just this is it. This is going to be our framework of how we're going to actually use a backwards integrated approach to design curriculum around our world's most pressing issues. Because the reality is right now, we don't know what problems we need to be solving and training our students for in the next 10, 20, 50 years. And the frameworks and the UN has done such a great job of at least getting us started with very clear metrics and targets of what we need to start achieving and striving towards. So just from our educational standpoint and curriculum, we always start with SDGs as our North Star. Each program will have about 2 to 3 SDGs. They all really are interconnected, to be honest, but we'll start with 2 or 3 SDGs and design curriculum around that and identify some of the best case studies in the world where they can tell a compelling story and bring that textbook element to life for students and to get firsthand experience with that too. But past that, actually as a startup, I will say there's a lot of things being lean that tie into sustainability really well as well. So, you know, to be scrappy or to be able to figure out ways where you can stretch your dollar the furthest and make the most impact. There's a lot of great sustainability and business concepts that can go hand in hand that are actually helpful to each other as well. So that's something that we held on to as we grew over the years. But things like, you know, operationally, we are really intentional about what we do. We know, like, we admit that we emit, right, for flights. So since 2016, we've been offsetting all of our students' flights. We've been tracking those flights, doing the best we can with what we have. We prioritize contracts to women and minority-led organizations around the world and any of our vendors as well. We're also a triple bottom line social enterprise, so we're a public benefit corporation. And that's something that is really important to how we structure all of our decision-making around how do we measure success. And it's not just profit, it's people and planet as well. For our team, you know, internal things, community cleanups, getting out into the community, making sure we're even offsetting our own teams travel for different conferences as well. Like, these are all important policies that we've had. So over the years, it's really accumulated, but we ended up coming up with a full environmental policy just for our team to be able to follow over the years as well for internal practices too.
Great. That's fantastic. So truly walking the talk. How about you, Katya?
Just to take a little bit more of a broader context, I think in general, what we're trying to do is to do something good with our company, hopefully. And so that kind of extends itself to a number of different things within the company, from how we treat each other. You know, like we're here to build a team that people enjoy being part of and have people that like to come to work. And so it's a really, really big part of it for us, to the way that we treat our customers. So we're here to help. We're here to solve a problem around food waste. And so a lot of the way that we interact with customers is with that type of approach. And I think the sustainability aspect, or building something that hopefully is doing something good for the planet and the people around us, basically drives a lot of these types of actions.
You know, that's an extraordinary point of just being kind should be a part of it should be a metric for sustainability for sure. And actually, it's a nice segue to our next question, which is there are unique challenges to running a sustainable company and being a female founder. Combining them together can seem daunting, particularly, I would say, during the pandemic. And when are they at odds at each other? And how do you balance the needs? Because, you know, women in society, despite the fact that we've come a long way since 1950, when we were all wearing high heels and aprons, I think there are different expectations of various genders. So I would love to hear from you all on what are some of the challenges and what are some of the advantages of being a woman entrepreneur. Katya, do you want to start that one?
Sure. You know, honestly, the reality is when you're a woman and then you're also talking about sustainable stuff, you're put into a very specific bucket, especially when you're talking about, you know, building a business or a company. So you're classified as like the ostrich in the room or the elephant in the room. But I think that can be used to your advantage too, for sure. You know, if you have a unique perspective on something or a business that stands out, it gives you a little bit of a platform on which to stand on and that people pay attention to, and it's a bit of a differentiator. And so I definitely strongly encourage, you know, obviously, you know, being a woman and running a sustainable business is something that people sometimes don't understand, interpret the wrong way, have a lot of challenges associated with it. But to take any possible advantage that does give you and leverage it into into some sort of positive growth or success for the business.
That's great. Melissa, do you want to reflect on that one?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think maybe like all of us can say this on this panel, but there's certain things that happen to us that we can't tell if it's because we're women or we're, for me, like women of color, right? So it's just, you can't separate or silo things that happen to you or how the world responds to you with your certain titles or what you've done. So for me, I know there's tons of times, and still this happens, where people ask, what do you do? And I tell them, and they're just like, wait, you started it? so you are running, and they have to clarify at least 3 times that I'm the founder and CEO of an organization, of a global organization, right? So it's just like, yes. So there's just little things like that I think impede socially for women, and where other people in society don't have to ever face things like that, little by little, those things impact you and make you question. And when I say that, I'm thinking about my 19-year-old self, or the future 19-year-old CEOs who face those types of questions along the way that give you a little bit of that doubt. But I say that just to also say, it's been interesting from my perspective, specifically just because we are a global company, and being an entrepreneur and also a woman, how that changes across borders as well. So my conversations, even just in the US, let's say with a meeting of a room of all men, compared to a meeting of all men in Iceland. Iceland is the most gender neutral country in the world. For the record, there is no gender neutral country in the world yet that has ever reached gender neutrality or in gender equality. So Iceland is the highest ranked, but it's a very different conversation just being a woman, and an entrepreneur in that sense too. But I will say, from the positive note, it's a good time to be a woman in sustainability. GreenBiz actually put out a statistic that women are leading the charge in the sustainability industry. And there's about 58% of sustainability executives in large companies are all female representation, which is great. And this is the next wave of business for good, So this is, I think, where it's a good time to be a female in entrepreneurship and sustainability.
Great. Natalie, do you have thoughts on that one?
So there's a saying that's really stuck with me over the past couple of months. Other countries have safety nets, but the US has women. And I know about it. We're like, yeah, we all know that's how it works over here. And at times in my career, I've worked with people in Europe and even in Canada. And our policies in this country need a lot of work to really get things to where women are on equal footing. So yeah, things are constantly at odds with one another. And every decision I make for my business is also weighed against a decision for my family, and whatever situation we're in at that point in time. And I'm really lucky that I have a support system and a network. But I've also tried to, give extra time to organizations or to mentor other women who might not have that support system, and help out as possible and as needed. But we definitely have a long way to go.
Well, so I have a follow-up question on that one, Natalie, and I'll just keep it directly with you. But what advice would you give to women looking to start up their own sustainable business? And I'll actually tack one on there for each of you to reflect on. Why do we think that sustainability is so overwhelmingly female? I've seen statistics, of grad schools that are at 70 to 80% women, and when I have worked in sustainability, frequently the team is 100% female. And the questions are, what advice do you have for women getting into sustainable businesses? But also, what are your reflections on why it's so overwhelmingly female? I think globally, to be honest.
I mean, for me personally, it comes from a desire to want to leave this earth better for my kids and future generations. That's definitely a big part of it. I look at the challenges that are coming with climate change, and I can't even imagine what it's going to look like. We just had this summer in the Philadelphia area, we had more tornadoes this summer than they did in Tornado Alley. That's not normal. I've lived here for 40 years. I remember a tornado once, twice, maybe. Now we're getting all these hurricanes coming through. Climate change is at our doorstep. So things need to get done. And I feel like women are the ones who, get tired of the crap and want to make the stand and make the change. We're out in the streets saying we got to change. But it's not easy, and I don't always do exactly the perfect thing, right? I definitely want to see less plastic in the world, but occasionally my kids get a Happy Meal toy. And that's just the way life is.
It is. It's hard to strike that balance, but if we're always striving for better, I think we'll make huge strides. Katya, did you want to reflect on that question of advice for women looking to start their own sustainable business, and then also why so many women are in sustainability?
Yeah, I think I would just, again, like, obviously there are so many situations that are super weird and sometimes inappropriate that come up when you're the only woman in a room. You know, like I've had VCs be like, I'll give you a term sheet if you go out with my son or something like that. So there's obviously a lot of like crazy stuff that happens. I think, you know, sometimes I look at situations like that and I say, well, you know what, you know, it's good that you let me know that you were an asshole to begin with, because now I don't even have to deal with it. So I try to take a positive spin on things. But I also think that a lot of people are aware of, you know, a lot of the challenges that women face, especially in environments that are mostly male dominated, and are there to help and support and in ways that they can. And I've met so many amazing people as a result of that, who, you know, like, for example, Penn has a women female founder mentor program, and two of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life, who still mentor me on a daily basis, who I call when I'm freaking out about, you know, the biggest challenges in my business. Yeah, I've just met some like incredible people going through this kind of specific journey of being a woman and running a business, especially a tech company. In terms of why women are more focused on sustainability, I think kind of to echo Natalie, it's a focus on the future. So having a little bit of forward thinking and thinking about what's going to happen when I'm not around. And that ties into awareness as well. So, you know, having a sense that there are other people on this planet. I'm not the only one traveling through it, and I would like to make sure that everyone around me has a positive experience. I think that's something that, for whatever reason, probably women are more driven towards.
Or nurturing, perhaps?
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Katya. Melissa, I'm going to throw this question to you, but I'm also going to ask, based on your last set of remarks, can you reflect a little bit too on what advice you would give to young entrepreneurs as well as women entrepreneurs in this space? And then also, if you have additional reflections as a person of color, if there's some particular advice that you would have liked to have received at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. So in general, I think it's so important to work with people who are aligned with not just your vision, but also your values as a person and for your business as well. And the reason why I say that is because when your values are clear and are clear across the team, it is so much easier to make decisions, especially in a year like, let's just say, when a pandemic happens or you have to make really big decisions, right? So when your values are clear, as a person and as a leader for your team, so much more clarity will happen all throughout the organization as well. And you will attract the same partners or investors along the way too. So that's one element that I think I wish I had more clarity on maybe when I was 19 years old, right? And was able to navigate and still navigating along the way too. As a female entrepreneur, I think it's important to believe in yourself. I've worked with so many men over the years that are just so overly confident in things they have no idea what they're talking about. And I didn't know that until years later, right? Kudos to them for being that confident. I think there's something in there that women, we can like be adopting into a little bit more and be confident and like really believe in our ideas too. So back ourselves, be confident in our ideas and vision, but also as an entrepreneur, you need to be proving, you know, what actually works and what doesn't work. So just don't be afraid to not have a perfect product. You know, start with, same with sustainability and business, progress over perfection. And you just keep striving towards those like bit by bit. And I think in terms of just being, you know, from the perspective of being a woman of color as well, mentorship, that is something that I wish I just knew more about. That was never in my vocabulary when I was younger. It wasn't something that It wasn't until I was working with more entrepreneurs actually when they said, oh, who are your mentors? Oh, my mentor is this and this and this. So that was something I never thought about in that way. I think as a person of color, mentors are our elders. They're family members who have gone through a lot of other things before us. But in the professional sense, I definitely didn't have female mentors and definitely not Asian female mentors as well. So that's something that I'm a lot more conscious about and something that I am intentional about giving my time back to a lot of women of color as well.
I think that's terrific and super helpful. I'll remind the audience that we're going to take questions from the audience if there are any in a few minutes. And just as a reminder, Katya focuses on food waste. Natalie focuses on sustainable shampoo as a way to get plastics out of our system. And Melissa focuses on educational experiences for teens or college students. So that, Melissa, is a great setup for our next question, which is what is missing in the entrepreneurial landscape that would have been helpful when you started your business? And Melissa, since you were just a little bit touching on this, I'd love to hear from you on this.
Sure. So, I mean, mentors, I'll say that one again. So mentorship, I know 63% of women actually have said they've never had a formal mentor before. So mentorship 101, just email, cold call, add them on LinkedIn, find people who are in your industry that are years beyond you or where you want to be. You'll be surprised how many people say, yes, like let's jump on a call for 10, 15 minutes and answer some questions. And then the other thing is definitely funding. You know, I think in 2019, this article came out and it was just like, we broke all the records. An astounding 2.8% of venture funded businesses are now women led. And then in the pandemic, it was like, oh, well, it kind of dropped to 2.3, but here we are, still less than 3%. So funding, right? So that has been a big gap since the beginning. It's been a big reason why the Green program has been completely bootstrapped since we started. So we had to find our own ways of making it work without outside funding. But now we're seeing this shift in sustainability with ESG investing or environmental social governance, right? And a lot of different organizations now are starting to look at the SDGs or ESGs for measuring their success and where they're investing their dollars into. So again, just the timing coming into this, sustainability is a really interesting time right now. Another article came out this week saying how sustainability and climate change is actually like the next .com bubble, which I thought was really interesting to even think about it like that. So yeah, interesting things happening there.
Great. Katya, did you want to, sorry, hold on one sec. I've just got a chat. Sorry, did you want to reflect on that one as well?
Totally. Yeah. Just to touch a little bit on the mentorship piece, I think, starting a company, it's something that people maybe don't necessarily think about when they start a company is that it's a very personal journey. A lot of it is about growth and growing yourself and figuring out who you are and how to manage people or work with people and bring the best out of people. And so mentorship is definitely a very critical part of that. Sometimes when we think about, we've got a business life and a personal life, and so we don't necessarily prescribe like building a company as something that is so deeply personal. And I think mentorship often bridges that gap for a lot of people. Another thing I think we're missing is frankly, like how to do it. How do you start a business? Where do you go? What's the beginning steps for these things? What am I supposed to expect? I went to Penn, which is supposedly super entrepreneurial, and it is, but I remember having a couple of ideas and not really necessarily knowing where to begin. And there was a lot of upfront work of, emailing a bunch of professors and being like, so what do I do now with this idea? Where do I go? And universities have tons of resources like this. There's, speaking to funding, there's a lot of pitch competitions, grant resources, professors that are willing to hear out your ideas and iterate and work through them, research labs, etc., that I think we're not necessarily highlighting as a huge advantage for, when you're starting a company. And then on top of that, that's within a certain framework that is supportive of startups. So, even stepping outside of that, how do you start a startup when you're not in an ecosystem that supports that? And I think there's very little knowledge about that. And on top of that, there's this big barrier of, to be a startup founder, you have to be like this crazy, like grind or die type of a person, with this like genius idea and, a bajillion dollars in revenue and so much traction by the time, you turn 18 or whatever. And so I think like kind of thinking a bit more about it like as a very attainable goal and something that you can start with baby steps, and kind of like what Melissa was saying is progress is critical, not always necessarily having that perfect product or achieving some ridiculous milestone.
Yeah, that's all very helpful. Natalie, would you like to reflect on that question about what you wish?
Yeah, so hats off to Katya for going the VC route and trying to get funding. Like Melissa, I'm bootstrapped. I found it increasingly difficult to try and find the right type of people to speak to get money to fund my business. Either angel investors or other investors that I spoke with didn't quite understand the product, they didn't understand the need for the product, or they wanted to see the product go through sales channels that I wasn't comfortable with, like Amazon or whatnot. Or they wanted to see, eventually when you take investment, the goal is that eventually 5, 7, 10 years down the line, there's an exit for those investors to make their money. And I really see a need for there to be businesses that just thrive. And unfortunately, there isn't as much support out there for businesses that just want to be a business and getting that started and everything. I definitely see a lot more focus on going the route of raising funding and trying to become the next unicorn. But not everything, needs to or really fits into the mold of a Delaware C Corp. And it can be really hard. But I'm happy with the choices that I've made so far.
So building on that, Natalie, what's the number one thing you wish the public understood about running a sustainability focused business and also funders? And I'm thinking of this too, I should just take a step back. I present a lot to a variety of audiences, and some people are totally in it to win it, and some people just don't, the price point may be the catch, the value proposition may be the catch, but I'd love to hear just the absolute top thing you wish people understood.
The most sustainable thing you can do is nothing in a lot of situations. And it sounds crazy, but if you have shampoo at home in your closet, please use that shampoo before you try my product. I will gladly sell you a bar of shampoo, but I don't want you to buy it if you already have a gallon of it sitting at home. That's just wasteful.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be sustainable, and it's really hard to make the most environmentally friendly choices. But sometimes it's, keeping your old Tupperware and not buying a brand new fancy stainless steel lunchbox. But at the same point, don't feel bad if you forget your refillable cup one day at Starbucks. It's, throwing away one paper cup isn't gonna make huge systemic change.
Yeah.
We need to contact our congressional leaders and make our voices heard for there to be these big ideas moving forward to be able to make change with climate change.
Yeah, those are both excellent points. Katya, do you have thoughts on that question?
Sure. I think like one thing that I do want to highlight is this kind of idea in general about sustainability being a trade-off in terms of profitability, which it certainly sometimes is, but other times it isn't. And I actually think in general, like being more sustainable, being less wasteful, being optimized or more focused on, generating the maximum use of resources tends to be profitable. So if you take the idea of food waste as an example, a farmer loses margin when they lose quality, or they have a huge bottom line impact when 10 to 40% of their crop just goes to waste. And so when you address a problem like that, you are not only creating a sustainable impact, but at the same time, you're also having a very strong financial incentive for the person to adopt your innovation. And I think that having this kind of impact on both sides, where there's a very strong profitable use case along with a sustainable one, enables the adoption of the solution to a much greater extent. And so I think, like, in general, kind of we could use a little bit more of a restructuring of the idea that sustainability is a trade-off that we make with profitability. It's something that I see a lot with a lot of investors. So sustainability focused VCs oftentimes are willing to make trade-offs on the business model, et cetera. But I think there are certainly ways to align both sides of the coin. I think that's kind of where we found our sweet spot to be specifically.
That's great. Thank you. Melissa, did you want to reflect on the number one thing?
Absolutely. I would say, just to zoom out, I don't think there should be a such thing as a sustainability entrepreneur. I think every business and every company has an opportunity to be more sustainable. And that's really the only way we're going to actually make an impact here. So we can't rely on just, the three of us, the four of us here, and people like us who are just focused on sustainability. I think sustainability is a niche now, but it's something that needs to be drawn into every business model to actually make an impact. And that's what we're here for at the end of the day, to be able to sustain this for future generations to come in a healthy, livable way as well. But when we do, I think it's important that we're the most critical people and have the most critical eye to these sustainable practices. There's going to be a huge wave now with greenwashing, and every business claiming to be carbon neutral or eco and this, and just, do your research, read. Again, nothing is going to be perfect. As long as we keep producing things, it's going to be really difficult to do something completely sustainable. But the way you do that is, get involved, like study sustainability, understand how your product or information or your products are actually affecting communities, from sourcing to the clients that you serve. And you can get involved. I want to actually plug Philly Startup Leaders as well. I'm on the board of this amazing organization that brings together all of Philadelphia's entrepreneurs and an ecosystem for entrepreneurs. We have a lot of amazing Accelerator programs, and just for entrepreneurs of all ages and backgrounds. Please get involved and look us up, come to our events, and be surrounded by more great entrepreneurs as well.
So that's fantastic, and thanks for the plug. I would say something that you just mentioned sort of struck me, Melissa. You were saying you were thinking that 100% of businesses should have this baked in. It should be part of, it's the triple bottom line. It should be part of what all businesses do. As a part of the Environmental Innovations Initiative at Penn, we are committed to striving for, I haven't actually set a goal for this, but striving for 100% of Penn students having the opportunity to learn about climate ethics, whether it's through formal or informal programming, just raising awareness that any discipline can and should be plugged into addressing our big environmental challenges. And we start with climate, but I also feel like biodiversity and pollution are right up there, as is environmental justice. That's all baked into what we do. And the reason I'm saying this is because I'd love to hear from each of you, what was your bachelor's degree in? Because it's not always a direct pathway. I will kick it off and say I have a bachelor's degree in acting, which made my subsequent degrees in science a lot harder to achieve, but it makes me who I am today. So I'd love to hear from each of you as a part of your personal academic journey, where you're coming from. Melissa, would you like to kick that one off?
Yeah, great question, Melissa. I have an undergrad degree in multicultural communication, and a minor in theater management. So similar with you there.
Yeah, that's great. Natalie?
So my undergrad degree is in mechanical engineering from Villanova, with a minor in math, and I also have an MBA from Gwinnett University.
Great. And Katya?
My undergrad degree is in molecular bio.
Yeah, so this is the amazing thing, like any pathway you choose can, that your bachelor's degree is just a part of you growing intellectually, emotionally, and as a human, and ensuring that these ethics are baked into that experience is a part of what I'm super excited about as somebody who works in higher education. So we have about 4 minutes left, and I think the last question that we have, and we can sort of batch this and do sort of a concluding statement from each of you. The last question we have is, how has the pandemic impacted your business and your personal capacity? I would actually pivot this question and say, how can we leverage this pandemic to build back better? And what do you see happening with your business? Katya, I'll start with you.
I think pandemic has definitely pointed us towards efficiency in general, right? Do we have to go to work every day to get the job done? Do we have to buy a billion paper towels to get the job done? And so I think that type of mentality has had some positive impacts. From a sustainability standpoint, I'm pretty stoked that we don't really need menus anymore. I think a QR code is super good enough and allows the restaurant to change their menu without printing new stuff all the time. And I've seen a lot of innovations in that type of thinking with the coronavirus epidemic and pandemic. And so as a result, I think we should keep pushing that type of thinking and those types of innovations as we move forward, because it ties hand in hand with sustainability and maximizing our resources and increasing efficiency.
Great. Right. Yeah, all great points, Katya. Natalie?
So, I love the pandemic year. The pandemic forced me to really be creative with my business to keep it moving forward. When I had started the business in 2019, I was selling at farmers markets. But once we hit the pandemic, selling face-to-face was too risky for my family situation. So I pulled out of the markets and I took some time to kind of reevaluate building out the website, fleshing social media, and I started building relationships with some small stores in the area. And it was a focus that I wasn't quite ready to go into wholesale. But when the pandemic came, it was like, okay, well, if I can't sell in person, then let's get it on store shelves as quickly as possible. And it really, forced me to go down that route. And it worked out wonderfully, thank God. But
Forced innovation.
It was forced innovation, yeah. And but it was definitely a lot sooner than I was expecting it to. There were several opportunities I had to turn down, even as COVID started to wane because of the risk. But there were a lot of opportunities because everybody started to go online. Something like being able to do the Pennovation Accelerator last summer as a remote option was something that I could apply for and participate in. Whereas even in a normal year, in the summer with the kids doing summer camps and having to go back and forth with everybody's schedule, I'm in the suburbs, so getting downtown is like an hour plus with traffic. It wouldn't have worked. But because it was a remote option, it was available to me. I've been able to network with other women in groups on the West Coast, people that I wouldn't have normally, interacted with in person, but because everything went online, those opportunities became more available.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, and I agree. I think it's opened horizons in a really important way. Speaking of horizons, Melissa, you get the last word.
Sure. So I think there's a work culture element that was really boosted within the Green program and our team when we had to switch to work from home. It's been something I've been thinking about for a long time, but it's hard to just make that change on a team and just hope for the best kind of thing. But we were forced into this situation. So I don't know, we've been a global team since 2009. We have, our teams all over the world where our programs operate too, but our home base HQ in Philly has always been in like a co-working office, like startup type environment. Now we tested it and we actually changed it from a work from home to like work from anywhere type mentality. And it's been amazing to just follow our team's journeys and see what they've been doing and really even live the green program's mission through their own life as well. So, you know, people are traveling the world. Like someone on our team had a bucket list to go to Niagara Falls. They've never been able to go there before, so they worked there for a week. You know, one other girl on our program, woman on our program, she was able to backpack and travel through all the national parks and work from all the national parks and be in nature. I love that for our team, you know, and I love that for our people, and I want to do that more. So moving forward, what we'll do, because we still believe in that connection, you know, in person too. So when we can again, and hopefully very soon, our quarterly meetings will be in person together, but without the office setting. We want to go on hikes together. We want to go kayaking. We don't want to go camping and hold those meetings like outside in nature again together and just spend more quality time than it would have been in an office. And then just the last thing I want to note is just the actual sustainability piece of virtual anything has been incredible. I don't have to fly places anymore to give a speech or to talk or just to like meet with our partners overseas, and it's just expected now, and it's okay to, it doesn't seem like you don't care as much, right, when you're not there in person. So the sustainability element has been huge, and our online courses has opened so much accessibility to more students as well. So we're really excited about that.
I completely agree with all of those points, actually. And I wish I could work from a national park. I think that's fantastic. Well, this has been a really rewarding 45 minutes for me. I'm super excited to have connected with each of you and to learn more about your businesses. And it's just totally inspired about your thoughts on being women entrepreneurs in the sustainability space. So on behalf of the University of Pennsylvania and the Environmental Innovations Initiative and this particular program, I think we can conclude with a huge thank you to each of you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess we just sign off now. That's the one downside. James, we're going to sign off now. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jess.